To repair the wing, I noticed a couple of things I needed to address. One was, as I was trying to shut the door, this edge here is all filler. So, as you can see there, I trimmed that back with the grinder to get a decent gap. I'll put some paint on that. These doors do need replacing or repairing. They do have a lot of filler in them. And it looks like it's like that much of this door is just filler. So that's something to address at some point. All I've done so far is just do a rough weld along here. So we have the tab bolted into the sill. And then this is the wing, and that's the line it was cut off. So I've welded this bit together so I can remove the wing, dress this up, finish the welding on it, so that's nice and solid. And then we can address this rust that's in here, which I'm not thrilled to have found, but I'm also glad I've found it because I can deal with it now. I'm hoping it's not too bad, and of course with the captive nut here, that could be a problem because I'm going to have to relocate that, so I might end up having to drill a hole or something to put that back in. We shall see. This is the sort of job where it's a little bit can of worms. One wing removed and set over here. You can see the weld I need to tidy up just there. Just finish that off. Clean all the rust off that's on there and then give that some fresh paint. That's not the difficult part. Another small job I'm going to address while I'm in here is just the corner of the valance here where this edge is pushed back. If you've seen the lower grille repair video or the wing replacement video, then you'll know about this fitment issue. It's just squashed back a little bit, but this metal is very, very flexible, so it'll go back into shape, no worries. There aren't really any other horrors under here that I need to address, which is nice. The problem is just here. This side seems really, really solid, and this is where it's gone, and it's just gone on this seam, and they put filler over it, which is why I hadn't seen it, and then painted it. And because everything's sort of this kind of condition, it's difficult to see where you should be poking to find problems, and I just found this as I was doing the wing. Now I know about it, obviously, I'm going to put that right. Happily, that is nowhere near as bad as it could have been. I'm going to have to basically chop out along the line here, and it does look like I'm probably going to have to chop out the captive nut there for the wing, and then we'll let a new patch in. This is going to be the awkward bit because it's shaped, so I'll have to figure out how I'm going to rebuild that bit. But it doesn't creep really any further than I could see. There is some surface rust down here, but I mean, how far do you go on a car like this? I could cut all this out and replace it with new and put new sills on and all that sort of business, but there's no point with this one. Somebody else can do it if they want to, but for me, I'm just going to deal with this bit here, and we'll rust treat this down here, because I can't put a screwdriver through it. It's not soft, it's not crunchy, it's just pitted. So we'll deal with the bad stuff, and then we'll dress up all the other stuff as best we can. The biggest problem I've got is trimming this in here. I don't have exactly the right tool, so rather than trying to clean up this rust, I will just cut the metal out and put the new piece in. And as you can see, I've caught the edge of the door, and yeah, it's just all filler. All of this section here is just all filler, which is fairly normal for a car like this. Same at the back. The driver's door is the worst one on the car. It can be repaired, but you can also get doors, so if some doors turn up, I'll just put new doors on it. One little extra job on the wing. There was some loose, flaky, undersealy paint stuff here, so I've removed that. I'll give this a rust treat and some fresh paint. Might as well while it's off the car. This wing bottom is as repaired as it needs to be. It's not beautiful, but it's out of sight when it's on the car, and a little bit of fresh paint and tide marking on there, that'll be fine. So I'm happy enough with that bit. Got a bit lucky with the sill. The captive nut still had enough metal around it that I could weld it back on in situ, so I've not lost its location, which is very good. Also, because of how the wing sits in here, that little knobbly bumpy bit, I'm just going to put a flat plate in instead, because the wing covers it up. It'll also stop anything getting trapped in there. So although the proper pressing would be nice, it's not really vital. So I'll put a nice clean patch in where there's no metal at the moment, and then I'll cap this end off here so that it matches the wing, so we have a nice gap at least, so it looks right. After some fiddling about with some cardboard, I found a way to patch this in one piece, which is great. So I won't have to deal with a seam in here on this fold. And that will actually work perfectly fine. And I'm just going to use one of the old wings that came off the car, because quite a lot of it's still good steel. Why bother buying new? After a bit of fiddling out, trimming and fitting and trimming and fitting, got the patch tacked in place. I'm going to buzz around all of that, bring you back when it's done. The welder I am using is this from Artec, and it is a fantastic bit of kit. It's the best welder I've ever used. The old Clark underneath it, which was given to me some years ago, great machine until it basically kept breaking, and I got to the point that it was too difficult to sort this one out, so I saved up and I got a nice one, and I'm glad I did. It has been a very good machine and continues to be a very good machine. Well, it was a bit tricky to get in, but that is all as done as that needs to be. I'll pop some seam sealer and some top coat on this to make it all future-proofed. The one problem I was having is I can't get in here, and the the wax oil stuff inside the sills kept catching fire. That's probably why the sills are still in one piece. They've been thoroughly protected. I did have to just undo this and move it out the way, but that's okay. You can see as well on this door edge the thickness of the filler there. So that's a job for another day, not a job for today. It's a grubby job doing this, so that's why I'm not recording a lot of it. I don't want to end up damaging my camera with welder spark or grinder spark, or just, you know, grubby hands. So I'm going to do the next few stages on this, get this all tidied up. I'm actually quite pleased at how straightforward a job that ended up being. I was a little bit concerned it was going to get worse. But generally on this car, as rough as it looks, what you see is what you get, and that's a bit of a relief. After experiencing the world's most disappointing thunderstorm, it's dried out, so I'm going to get some paint on these bits of bare metal. The rust converter has done its thing, and I've got some seam sealer on there as well, just to make sure everything stays nice. On the front wing, I've got this lip here to sort out, and just the repair down at the bottom there. I'm not doing any filler work on this, it's not needed. If I was doing restoration work, I might. First thing I'll use is some U-Pol weld-through primer. I found these zinc primers are really good at stopping rust when you've done a fresh repair. They do have quite a large spray pattern on them as well. Next up, some red primer. This helps bring the colour of the Mazda paint I'm using down to something nearer the Maestro. Next up, I'm using Mazda Classic Red. I can't get Targa Red off the shelf, it would be special order, but this stuff's pretty close. This car's already several different shades of red anyway, so a little more mismatch won't matter. Last thing to finish everything off is just some clear lacquer, at least to finish off the paint side of things. There's one more bit of protection to go on after this. As quick repairs go, I don't think that's too bad. The last thing I need to do is just replace the missing under seal. So I need to wait for this paint to harden off a bit before I can mask everything off for that. I also don't want to be bolting things on while the paint is still very fresh. There was a little spot of flaking paint just in there, and I've massaged the valance forwards a little bit just to get that to meet up with the lower grille a little bit better, so that should match the wing better. Speaking of, I've also painted the repaired section over here, which looks fine, and the bit over here, I just repainted it where the paint had come off, so that's all ready to go back on the car, which is great. So now just a case of waiting for things to dry, and then I can get that all back together again. Last bit to do on here, and we're using Hammerite underbody seal. It's got wax oil in it. I don't know how good this is long term, this is just what I could get hold of, so it's what I'm using. Now it's all ready to go back together again. I did some undercoating in this section here because that is open from underneath, and I did notice there was some loose paint there which I dealt with but didn't record. So that's all covered in, and then all the leading edge here is just tidied up. I didn't want to do the entire inner arch because you can see some of this A-pillar and it can look a bit weird if there's under seal in there, so I've just left it below this line on the sill. Originally the car wouldn't have had this black line down the sill, it would have been body coloured, but given its age and mileage and the fact I use this every day, at least when it's MOT'd, it made sense to me to do this. It'll help it through the winter. To match the bodywork, I've also done the bottom of the wing. The last thing I want is a little red tab sticking out, that will look strange, and that's all ready to go on the car. Now if you get really close, you can see the imperfections where I've not done any filler work at all. But honestly, does it matter? Doesn't matter to me. And that edge looks a lot tidier now. This job took a lot longer than I meant it to. 2 heat waves, the hottest day ever recorded in the UK, and then a thunderstorm, and then all the work-related stuff that's kept me from working on the car really has slowed me down a lot. However, I think I'm now ready, once this is back on, to book this in for its MOT. The last time I tried, the rear arches fell off. So we'll try again. I know some of you have been on the MOT history checker, so you've been keeping track of the car and whether or not it's MOT'd because you're nosy. I know, I do the same thing. Hopefully it will go through no problem, and if it does need anything, it'll be something minor like a bulb's burned out between home and the MOT station. I've had that happen before. I can't find anything on the car that I think it's going to fail on. I'm not an MOT tester though, which is why we book it in. I will report back on that one when we do it. For now, I've got to wait for this paint to harden up a bit and the underseal to dry off before I can put the wing on. Everything's still a bit soft, so I'm probably going to reassemble all of this tomorrow because, well, I don't want to end up damaging what I've just done because of impatience. Wing all bolted back in place. I'm fairly happy with the door gap there. I think that looks okay. And we've got the one bolt at the bottom there, which I had to get from my bolt stash because it looks like I was missing that one. You can see the gap at the bottom of the wing between the sill and the wing there is slightly wrong. I'm not going to do anything about that. I'm just going to leave that alone. It won't make a difference. I did get the valance somewhat more the shape it should be, but that's opened up a gap at the bottom there, and I can't figure out what's going on. I suspect it's these tabs here. They're sprained out or something. I don't know. Job for another day, that one. The wing is secure and fully bolted down, so we're all right there. I've gone through and done what MOT checks I can on this, so checked all my lights, brakes seem to be working, car's running without smoking. Yeah, I think there might be something on the MOT, but we'll have to wait and see.